Tonight, we're turning our attention inward, to something you carry with you every moment of your life, yet rarely pause to truly wonder about. Your body is not just a vessel that carries you through the world. It is a living universe, humming softly beneath your awareness. Trillions of tiny processes are unfolding right now, perfectly timed, quietly coordinated, all so you can breathe, listen, and rest. This is a place of rhythm and balance, of hidden conversations between cells, of ancient systems shaped by deep time and constant adaptation. Within you are stories older than memory, clever solutions borrowed from physics and chemistry, and delicate feedback loops that keep everything in quiet harmony. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your shoulders soften, allow your breathing to slow, and allow your mind to unwind as we explore the fascinating inner workings of the body. Let's begin. Your heart beats around 100,000 times each day. Each beat is a coordinated squeeze that sends blood to every corner of you. The rhythm begins in a tiny cluster of pacemaker cells that generate an electrical ripple, like a drummer setting the tempo. That signal spreads through the heart's walls, telling muscle fibers when to contract, and valves snap shut to keep flow moving one way. When you stand up, your pulse can quicken to stop blood from pooling in your legs. When you exhale slowly, it can ease, matching your breath. Across a lifetime, this steady work adds up to billions of contractions, powered by a muscle that feeds itself through its own coronary vessels. Even in sleep, it adjusts its force beat by beat, responding to hormones, temperature, and emotion. So circulation stays dependable from cradle to age. Your gut holds a living ecosystem of microbes that helps keep you alive. They arrive at birth and gather with every meal, kiss, and breath until your intestines become a bustling city of bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Many are friendly partners that break down fibers you cannot digest, turning them into short-chain fatty acids that nourish the gut wall and influence metabolism. Some manufacture vitamins, including vitamin K, and help train immune cells to tell friend from foe. Others compete with harmful invaders, taking up space and resources so troublemakers struggle to settle in. This community shifts when you travel, change diet, take antibiotics, or live with chronic stress, and your body notices. In a very real way, you are an animal plus a microbial chorus working together to keep balance. Scientists are even exploring tailored probiotics and fecal transplants, hoping to treat disease by reshaping this hidden neighborhood. Your skin is a waterproof shield that also talks to your immune system. It is your largest organ, and it works like a smart boundary rather than a simple wrapper. The outer layer is packed with tough proteins and waxy lipids that keep precious water in and many irritants out. The surface is slightly acidic, discouraging unwanted microbes, while a diverse community of skin bacteria helps claim territory. When you get a tiny cut, skin cells release chemical alarms that summon immune defenders and start repair, often before you even notice the break. Specialized cells can present clues from invading germs, teaching the immune system what to respond to next time. Even sunlight, dryness, and gentle touch can change which messages are sent. Your skin is a sensing, signaling interface between you and everything you meet. That is why a rash can signal allergy, infection, or stress all at once. Your brain can spark new connections every time you learn something. That ability is called neuroplasticity, and it is why practice turns clumsy attempts into fluent skills. When you repeat a piano chord, a tennis serve, or a new language sound, certain circuits fire together, and the brain gradually makes that pathway easier to travel. Cells grow new branches, strengthen helpful synapses, and trim connections that are rarely used, like gardening for efficiency. Even your sense of, "I can't do this," can soften because the brain is not fixed hardware. It is living tissue that remodels with experience, stress, sleep, and attention. The most surprising part is quiet. Tiny changes can begin after a single focused session, then deepen while you rest. Over months, those rewired roots can even shift how you feel pain, calm fear, or notice beauty, proving that learning is a physical act. Your bone marrow is a factory that makes most of your blood cells. Inside many bones is a soft, busy tissue. This is marrow, and it is where stem cells decide what the body needs next. Some become oxygen carriers, others become infection fighters, and others become platelets that help stop bleeding. The choices are guided by chemical signals that rise during illness, after blood loss, or at high altitude. Marrow also serves as a training ground where immune cells learn what belongs in the body and what does not. With age, some active marrow is replaced by fatty marrow, yet your body keeps enough production capacity. In emergencies, it can ramp up output, releasing more cells into circulation. Treatments like chemotherapy can damage this factory, which is why transplants of marrow or stem cells can be life-saving, rebooting blood and immunity. It is a hidden workshop, tucked within your skeleton, quietly building tomorrow's protection and repair. It listens to signals, then responds. Your goosebumps are a leftover reflex from ancestors who had much more body hair. Goosebumps happen when tiny muscles attached to hair follicles contract, pulling hairs upright and making the skin dimple. In animals with thick fur, this makes the coat fluffier, trapping more air for warmth. It can also make an animal look larger when threatened, a quick intimidation trick. Humans get the reflex, even though we lost most of the fur that made it useful. Now, goosebumps show up when you are cold, but also when you are moved, startled, or deeply inspired by music. That emotional version is a clue that the reflex is tied to the sympathetic nervous system, the same system that prepares the body for action. It can raise heart rate, sharpen attention, and redirect blood flow, all in a heartbeat. Goosebumps are a small fossil of evolution written into your skin, reminding you that your body carries old survival programs alongside modern thoughts. Even in a quiet room, a single note in a song can press that ancient button, and your skin responds. Your clotting system can seal a cut, yet stay quiet elsewhere. When a vessel is damaged, your body has to plug the leak fast, but only at the injury site. Platelets rush in first, sticking to exposed tissue and to each other, forming a temporary patch. Then a cascade of clotting proteins activates in a precise chain reaction, building strands of fibrin that weave the plug into a strong mesh. At the same time, the body releases natural anticoagulants and uses smooth vessel linings to prevent runaway clotting in healthy areas. Once healing begins, another system slowly dissolves the clot, clearing the path so blood can flow freely again. This balance is delicate. Too little clotting can lead to dangerous bleeding. Too much can form clots inside vessels, risking stroke or heart attack. Everyday life depends on this quiet choreography, a repair crew that can build a barrier in minutes, then step back when the job is done, leaving no trace except a healed surface. Your blood travels a looping highway of vessels longer than Earth's circumference. Picture the smallest streets first, capillaries so fine that red cells often pass single file. These narrow passages slip between muscle fibers, around neurons and through the walls of organs, delivering oxygen and nutrients within a breath's reach of every cell. From there, blood gathers into veins, returning carbon dioxide and wastes for disposal and recycling. This network is not static. Vessels can widen when you exercise, constrict when you are cold, and even sprout new branches after injury or training. The lining of each vessel releases signals that control clotting, inflammation, and pressure, acting like an organ spread throughout your body. All day and night, this circulatory map is being adjusted, repaired, and rerouted, so delivery never stops. In emergencies, your body can prioritize the brain and heart, shunting flow away from less urgent regions for survival. Your lungs unfold a gas exchange surface about the size of a tennis court. That vast area is hidden inside millions of tiny air sacs, each wrapped in a web of capillaries. When you inhale, fresh air flows down branching tubes that split again and again, like an upside-down tree, until oxygen meets blood across a barrier thinner than a soap bubble. Carbon dioxide slips the other way, leaving with your next exhale. The lungs also do housekeeping. They warm and humidify incoming air, trap dust in sticky mucus, and sweep it upward with cilia so you can swallow it without thinking. Surfactant, a slippery substance in the sacs, keeps them from collapsing like wet plastic. With each breath, you are not just moving air. You are trading gases with the world, quietly keeping every cell supplied. Even sighs and yawns help reopen sleepy areas and spread that surfactant. Your body can shiver to generate heat through rapid muscle contractions. Shivering is your emergency heater switching on. When the brain senses a drop in temperature, it can trigger quick, involuntary muscle contractions across the body. These contractions do not aim to move you anywhere. Their purpose is to burn fuel and release heat as a byproduct. It is a clever trade, turning chemical energy into warmth when the environment is stealing heat faster than you can replace it. Shivering can start subtly, a faint tremble in the jaw or shoulders, then grow into full body shaking if cold deepens. It often arrives with goosebumps and narrowed skin vessels because the body is trying to conserve heat at the surface while making more inside. This response costs energy, which is why prolonged cold can leave you exhausted and hungry. It can also be dangerous when fuel runs low. Still, shivering is one of your oldest survival tools, a built-in fire made of muscle, sparked automatically when you need it most. Your bones are living tissue, constantly breaking down and rebuilding. Inside each bone, teams of cells run a quiet renovation schedule. Osteoclasts carve away old mineral, then osteoblasts lay down fresh collagen and refill it with calcium crystals, keeping the structure strong without becoming brittle. This remodeling responds to use. When you lift, walk, or jump, bones sense tiny strains and reinforce the areas that bear load, like a house adding support where footsteps fall. When you are inactive for long periods, the opposite happens, and bone density can slip. Hormones, including estrogen and parathyroid hormone, help steer the pace, and nutrition provides the raw materials. Fractures heal by building a temporary scaffold, then reshaping it over weeks and months until strength returns. Your skeleton is less like stone and more like a living bank account of minerals and strength. Even ears rely on bones to transmit sound with precision. Your DNA packs instructions so tightly, it fits inside nearly every cell. If you stretched the genetic material from one cell end to end, it would be surprisingly long, yet it coils with exquisite order. DNA wraps around proteins called histones, forming bead-like units that fold again into thicker fibers, then loop and stack until an entire library fits into a nucleus. Packing is not only storage. The way it is wrapped helps decide which genes are easy to read and which stay quiet. So a skin cell can act like skin, while a neuron acts like a neuron, even though the text is the same. Chemical tags on DNA and histones can change with age, diet, and environment, leaving traces of experience without rewriting the letters. Your body is built from the same blueprint, interpreted in countless ways. And when cells divide, they copy it with proofreading catching errors. Your eyes can detect a single photon under the right conditions. The photon is the smallest unit of light, and your visual system is tuned so finely that one can sometimes trigger a response in the retina. In near darkness, special cells called rods amplify faint signals, passing them forward to layers of neurons that compare patterns and filter noise. The brain then decides whether the moment counts as seeing, which is why perception is part biology and part interpretation. This sensitivity is also why bright light can feel painful after darkness, because those same circuits become suddenly overwhelmed. Vision is not a camera. Your eyes gather scraps of light, and your brain builds a stable world from them, correcting for motion, filling gaps, and guessing what matters. The result is a seamless scene, even though the raw input arrives in tiny, jittery pieces, all stitched together in real time. Your body makes new red blood cells every second, without you noticing. Deep in your bones, the marrow runs a constant assembly line, releasing fresh cells that are packed with hemoglobin for carrying oxygen. Each one begins as a stem cell that chooses a fate, then matures through stages where it builds its cargo and ejects its nucleus to make room. Once in circulation, a red blood cell spends about 4 months squeezing through capillaries, bending like a soft coin to reach narrow turns. Old cells are removed quietly by the spleen and liver, and their useful parts, especially iron, are reclaimed for reuse. This steady turnover matters because oxygen delivery is not optional. It powers your brain, your muscles, and the tiny repair crews working everywhere. Even now, while you sit still, your body is refreshing the very fleet that keeps you supplied, so you can move and heal. Your stomach lining replaces itself in only a few days. Under the microscope, your stomach is less a bag and more a busy workshop. The surface is lined with cells that face harsh conditions, so they live fast and get replaced quickly. New cells rise from deep folds, migrate upward like fresh tiles sliding into place, then shed into the churn of digestion. This renewal helps keep small injuries from spicy meals, alcohol, or stress from turning into lasting damage. It is also part of defense, because many germs struggle to cling to a lining that is constantly being renewed. The timing is precise. If replacement slows, irritation can linger. If it speeds up too much, the tissue can become fragile. Your body quietly balances growth and loss, keeping the inner wall smooth, sealed, and ready for the next bite, even while you sleep. Behind the scenes, hormones and local signals decide which cells divide, which mature, and which retire. Your liver can regrow lost tissue, up to a remarkable point. After a serious injury, the liver can do something that feels almost mythical. It does not grow back as a perfect missing lobe, yet the remaining tissue can expand until overall function is restored. Cells that usually spend their days processing nutrients, detoxifying chemicals, and building important proteins can re-enter the cell cycle and divide. Blood vessels and bile channels remodel to match the new shape, like a city rerouting streets after an earthquake. This ability has made living donor transplants possible, where a portion of one person's liver can support another, and both portions can enlarge over time. The trick has limits. Scarring, chronic inflammation, or ongoing toxins can block the process. Still, the message is striking. An organ you rely on for cleaning and chemistry also carries a built-in plan for repair, ready to activate when survival demands it. At rest, it keeps measuring, adjusting, and healing. Your kidneys filter your entire blood supply many times a day. Each kidney is a dense bundle of tiny filters called nephrons, and together they act like a meticulous quality control team. Blood enters under pressure, and a portion is strained through microscopic membranes, creating a watery draft of what might become urine. Then the real magic begins. Along winding tubules, your body reclaims what it cannot afford to lose, returning water, salts, and useful molecules back to the bloodstream. What remains carries away extra acids, excess minerals, and dissolved wastes that would otherwise build up and harm cells. This is not a once-a-day chore. It happens continuously, adjusting with every sip of water, every salty snack, and every workout. When you're asleep, the kidneys keep testing and tuning, so your blood chemistry stays within narrow limits. They also help control blood pressure by managing fluid volume, making them silent guardians of balance for brain, heart, and nerves. Your brain uses roughly a fifth of your body's resting energy. Although it is only a small fraction of your body weight, the brain is an energy-hungry organ. Even when you are sitting still, it spends fuel to keep billions of cells ready to signal, maintain chemical gradients, and coordinate the body's next move. Much of that cost goes to communication, because neurons are constantly whispering to one another, predicting what you will hear next, and deciding which thoughts deserve attention. That is why low blood sugar can feel like fog, and why oxygen loss can cause confusion so quickly. The brain wants a steady supply, so your circulation and breathing systems treat it like a top priority client. During deep sleep, its energy use changes, not because it shuts down, but because it shifts tasks, restoring supplies and clearing byproducts. Your waking mind feels effortless, yet underneath it is powered by a ceaseless, costly dance of chemistry all night. Your tongue can sense 5 core tastes and many subtle variations. Sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and savory are the classic taste pillars, and your tongue helps detect them with clusters of receptor cells. Those cells sit inside taste buds, which refresh themselves regularly, then send signals through nerves that race to your brainstem. But tasting is never just the tongue. As you chew, aromas rise into the back of the nose, and that smell component can make vanilla seem sweeter or coffee seem deeper. Temperature matters too, which is why melted ice cream feels richer than the frozen scoop. Even expectation changes flavor, because the brain blends memory and sensation into one experience. Taste also has a protective side. Bitterness can warn of toxins, while saltiness can hint at needed minerals. Over a lifetime, your palate learns, expanding from childhood pickiness into appreciation of spice, fermentation, and subtle herbs. Every meal becomes a small neuroscience experiment, happening in seconds for you. Your nose can detect tiny molecules, even at astonishingly low levels. Your sense of smell begins when airborne molecules drift into the nasal cavity and dissolve in a thin layer of mucus. There, they meet receptors that are shaped like locks, each ready for certain chemical keys. When a match happens, nerve signals surge toward the brain, which rapidly compares the pattern to a vast library of remembered scents. That is why one whiff can bring back a childhood kitchen, a hospital hallway, or a specific person. Smell also acts as an early warning system. It can alert you to smoke, spoiled food, leaking gas, or chemicals that irritate tissue. Some people can even notice faint differences in body odor linked to illness, a skill researchers are studying for diagnostics. Because smell is tied to emotion centers, it can shift mood quickly, calming you with lavender or sharpening attention with citrus. You are sampling the air while you are simply breathing. Your ears convert air vibrations into electrical signals your brain can read. Hearing starts when moving air nudges your eardrum, and that gentle motion is passed inward like a relay. Tiny structures amplify the vibration, then send it into a fluid-filled spiral called the cochlea. Inside, thousands of hair cells bend with the waves, and that bending opens channels that turn motion into electrical signals. Different pitches peak at different spots along the spiral, so a low bass note and a high whistle light up different regions. From there, the brain stitches timing and intensity into a sense of space, letting you locate footsteps behind you, or a friend calling from across a room. Hearing is also protective. Sudden loud sounds trigger reflexes that tighten middle ear muscles, reducing incoming force. Over time, repeated loud noise can damage delicate hair cells, which is why hearing loss can be permanent. Still, the system is so sensitive, it can detect rustle of fabric. Your balance system uses fluid-filled canals to sense every head movement. Hidden in your inner ear are free curved canals filled with fluid, arranged in different directions like the axes of a compass. When you turn your head, the fluid lags behind for a moment, pushing on sensors that report rotation. Nearby, other sensors detect straight-line motion and gravity by tracking tiny crystals that shift with acceleration. Together, these signals tell your brain whether you are nodding, spinning, leaning, or riding in an elevator. Most of the time you never notice, because the system is constantly corrected and calibrated. But when the signals disagree, you feel it instantly as dizziness, vertigo, or motion sickness. On a boat, your eyes may see steady cabin walls, while the canals feel rolling waves, and the mismatch can trigger nausea. Yet this same system allows dancers to pirouette, gymnasts to flip, and toddlers to wobble their way toward walking, learning balance through practice daily. Your pupils change size in fractions of a second to protect vision. In bright sunlight, your pupils shrink, and in darkness they widen, acting like an automatic camera aperture. This change is controlled by muscles in the iris that respond to light levels in a heartbeat, reducing glare and protecting sensitive retinal cells. But the pupil is also a window into your nervous system. Surprise, fear, mental effort, and even strong interest can widen it, because the brain links pupil size to alertness and attention. That is why eye trackers can estimate where someone is engaged, confused, or emotionally moved without a single word. The reflex has built-in safety checks too. If light hits one eye, both pupils respond together, helping keep vision balanced. Doctors use this shared reaction as a quick test of brainstem pathways. So that small, dark circle is not just an opening. It is a living dial, constantly adjusting to the world outside and the world within. Your eyes are always slightly jumping, even when you stare. Even when you think you are holding your gaze perfectly still, your eyes are making tiny movements called microsaccades. They are quick, subtle jumps that keep the visual scene from fading. If an image stayed absolutely fixed on the same retinal cells, those cells would adapt and the world would begin to disappear, like a smell you stop noticing. These miniature shifts refresh the signal, adding just enough change for the brain to keep seeing. They also help you examine fine detail. When you read, your eyes do not glide smoothly across a line. They hop, pause, then hop again, and during the pauses your brain gathers meaning. Microsaccades happen during those pauses too, helping sharpen edges and contrast. Scientists can even measure patterns of these movements to study attention, fatigue, and certain neurological conditions. So stillness in vision is an illusion, created by constant, careful motion behind the scenes. Your retina is brain tissue, sitting right at the back of the eye. At the back of each eye sits a thin sheet of nerve tissue that behaves like an outpost of your brain. Light lands on photoreceptors, rods for dim scenes and cones for color, and is turned into pulses that travel through layers of neurons. Before the message ever reaches your skull, that network is already sharpening edges, detecting motion, and adjusting contrast, like quiet pre-editing. Then signals exit through the optic nerve and are woven into the picture you experience as effortless sight. Because it is nervous tissue, it needs a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients, and it can be affected by blood sugar, blood pressure, and inflammation. Doctors can even look through the pupil and see blood vessels directly, a rare window into the body's wiring and circulation, all in plain view. In darkness, it becomes astonishingly sensitive, and in sun, it protects itself with chemical resets. Your tears carry oils, water, and proteins in a precise recipe. Tears are not just water from emotion. Your eyes make different blends for different jobs. Basal tears bathe the surface all day, carrying salts that match body chemistry and proteins that discourage germs. Reflex tears surge when smoke or onion fumes irritate the eye, flushing away particles with extra volume. Emotional tears add a slightly different mix, including stress-related molecules that researchers still debate, and they flow with the help of facial muscles and breathing. A thin, oily layer, released from glands in the eyelids, slows evaporation so the eye does not dry out too quickly. Mucins help the fluid spread evenly, turning the cornea into a smooth lens. Each blink guides the film toward tiny drainage openings in the inner corners, sending it into the nose, which is why crying can make you sniffle. Even newborns arrive with this system, ready to clear dust and keep vision comfortable. Your blink spreads a fresh film that keeps the eyes smooth. A blink looks simple, but it is a swift maintenance sweep. In a fraction of a second, the eyelids slide down and back up, spreading a fresh layer of tear film across the cornea. That film smooths tiny surface irregularities, so light bends cleanly and vision stays sharp. The blink also pushes debris toward the inner corner, where it can be drained away, and it gives the eye a brief break from drying air. You blink more when you are tired, when the room is dry, or when you concentrate so hard that your eyes start to sting. Some blinks are full closures, others are quick partial taps, and the brain chooses them based on need. During a conversation, blinks often land at natural pauses, as if your body is editing the rhythm of attention. Even while you sleep, gentle lid movements help keep the surface healthy all night long. Your skeleton carries minerals that also help your nerves fire properly. Your skeleton is a storage vault, as well as a frame. The hard mineral in bone is rich in calcium and phosphorus, and those ions are not only for strength. Calcium helps nerve endings release neurotransmitters, and it allows muscles to contract, including the heart. When blood calcium drops, hormones signal bone to release a little into circulation, keeping electrical signaling steady. When levels rise, bone can take some back, like a bank rebalancing accounts. This constant exchange means bone health is tied to nerve function, movement, and even clotting. It also explains why the body guards calcium so fiercely, using vitamin D to improve absorption and kidneys to control losses. If the balance drifts too far, nerves may tingle, muscles may cramp, and the heartbeat can misbehave. So beneath the quiet strength of your skeleton is a living mineral economy, keeping your signals crisp and your motions reliable always. Your largest bone, the femur, can handle enormous daily forces. The femur, a long bone in your thigh, is built like a bridge pillar. Its outer shell is dense and strong, while the inner structure forms a lattice that spreads stress without wasting weight. When you walk, it handles forces greater than your body weight, and when you run or jump, those forces rise dramatically. The bone is angled to bring knees under your center of mass, helping balance and efficient stride. At the hip, a ball joint lets you rotate, squat, and climb, while muscles anchor to ridges and pull with leverage. Engineers study the femur because it combines stiffness and lightness in a way that is hard to copy. Yet, it is not unchanging. Repeated loading encourages it to strengthen in the directions you use most, which is why activity in youth can build resilience for life. Every step is a test, and your femur keeps passing it. Your smallest bones sit in your ear, tuned for delicate vibrations. In the middle ear sit 3 tiny bones with memorable names: malleus, incus, and stapes. Together, they form a miniature lever system that boosts the eardrum's motion and delivers it into the inner ear's fluid world. Without that boost, much of sound energy would bounce away at the boundary between air and fluid, and hearing would be weaker. The stapes, shaped like a stirrup, is the smallest bone in the body, yet it pushes on a flexible window only millimeters wide with precision. Muscles attached to these bones can tense up during loud noise, slightly damping vibration as a protective reflex. When infection or scarring stiffens this chain, sounds can seem muffled, as if the world has been wrapped in cotton. Some surgeries replace a damaged stapes with a tiny prosthesis, restoring movement and bringing back clarity. It is that such delicate parts help you enjoy music, laughter, and whispers. Your joints make slippery fluid that reduces friction to near zero. Where 2 bones meet, the body builds a space that behaves like a well-oiled hinge. The ends are capped with smooth cartilage, and the joint is sealed in a capsule that holds synovial fluid, a clear liquid with a slippery molecule called hyaluronan. This fluid does more than lubricate. It nourishes cartilage, which has no direct blood supply, by carrying dissolved nutrients as you move. Under pressure, it becomes slightly thicker, helping cushion impact, and when pressure eases, it thins again, ready for the next glide. That is why gentle motion can make stiff joints feel better, because movement stirs the fluid and distributes it across surfaces. In arthritis, the balance can change, with inflammation altering the fluid and roughening cartilage, turning smooth glides into painful grinds. Yet in healthy joints, friction is so low it can rival ice on ice, letting you dance, climb, and write with ease. Your cartilage has no blood supply, so it heals frustratingly slowly. Cartilage is padding that makes joints effortless, yet it lives on a tight budget. Unlike many tissues, it has no blood vessels, so it cannot call in a rapid delivery of oxygen and repair cells after an injury. Instead, it relies on slow diffusion from joint fluid, which is why a damaged knee can linger for months or never fully return. The cells inside, chondrocytes, are sparse, and they mostly maintain what already exists. When cartilage thins with age or heavy use, bones can rub more directly, and the joint may answer with stiffness. Medicine tries to help by smoothing rough areas, stimulating tiny microfractures to invite repair tissue, or transplanting cells grown in a lab. Even then, the new surface may not match the original springy glide. This is why protecting joints early, with strength and sensible movement, pays off for decades. So treat each bend like a gift. Your tendons store and release energy like biological springs. Tendons are the tough cords that connect muscle to bone, and they do more than transmit pull. Many tendons act like springs, stretching slightly when you land or push off, then snapping back to return energy. That rebound can make movement more efficient, saving muscle effort during running and hopping. The Achilles tendon is a famous example, storing energy with each step like a charged elastic band. But springiness requires careful structure. Tendons are built from parallel collagen fibers, aligned to handle repeated tension, and they adapt when training increases load. Too much, too soon can create tiny tears, leading to stubborn pain because tendons have a limited blood supply and heal slowly. Gentle progressive loading, however, can strengthen them, which is why rehabilitation often includes controlled resistance. When you watch a dancer leap or a child bounce, you are seeing tendon physics in action, recycling energy with every landing. Your muscles contain tiny power plants called mitochondria, made for endurance. Inside each muscle cell sit thousands of mitochondria, tiny compartments that turn food and oxygen into usable energy. When you take a brisk walk or climb stairs, they run chemical steps that recharge ATP, the immediate fuel for contraction. Endurance training encourages muscles to build more of these power makers and to improve how they use fat and sugar. That is why a trained runner can keep a steady pace longer with less strain. Mitochondria also send signals helping decide when a cell repairs itself, when it recycles worn parts, and when it calls for help during stress. They even carry their own small set of genes, a reminder of an ancient partnership from early life. When these systems falter, fatigue can feel heavy and mysterious. When they thrive, movement starts to feel like quiet confidence. In every heartbeat and step, they are the unseen engines keeping you going, gently. Your body can recruit more muscle fibers when you practice a skill. Strength is not only bigger muscles, it is smarter coordination. Each muscle is made of motor units, bundles of fibers controlled by a single nerve. In a new movement, like learning a pull-up or a clean tennis swing, the brain recruits motor units in a clumsy pattern, wasting effort. With practice, signals become timed and selective, turning on more fibers at the right moment and letting others relax. The same muscle can then produce more force without adding any new size. This is why beginners often get stronger quickly in the first weeks. The nervous system is learning the choreography. It also learns to steady joints by activating supporting muscles, which can make movements feel smoother and safer. Over time, that improved recruitment becomes a skill you can call on under pressure, like lifting a box without thinking. Athletes train this invisibly until power arrives with almost no strain. Your diaphragm does most of the work for every calm breath. Breathing feels effortless because a single dome-shaped muscle does the heavy lifting. The diaphragm sits beneath the lungs, and when it contracts, it flattens downward, creating a gentle vacuum that pulls air in. When it relaxes, the lungs recoil and air drifts out, like a slow release from a balloon. This simple motion also massages organs, helping move blood and lymph through the chest and belly. If you have ever felt calmer after a long exhale, part of that is the diaphragm working with the vagus nerve, nudging the body toward a quieter state. Singers, swimmers, and wind instrument players train its control, shaping breath into steady streams. Hiccups are a small glitch, sudden contractions that jolt the rhythm. Yet most of the time, this muscle keeps perfect time, all day and all night, even when your mind is elsewhere. In deep sleep, it still rises and falls, faithful. Your lungs defend themselves with mucus and microscopic waving cilia. Your airways are lined with a moving carpet that quietly cleans the air you breathe. Sticky mucus traps dust, pollen, and many microbes before they can reach delicate lung tissue. Then microscopic hairs called cilia beat in coordinated waves, sweeping that mucus upward toward the throat. You usually swallow it without noticing, sending the captured debris to the stomach's harsher defenses. When you catch a cold, the system shifts into high gear, making extra mucus and sometimes slowing the cilia, which is why congestion feels heavy. Smoke and pollution can paralyze cilia, leaving the lungs less protected and increasing infection risk. Hydration matters too, because mucus must be the right thickness to move. This is not a one-time cleanup. It is constant housekeeping, minute after minute, keeping each breath safer than it would otherwise be. Every cough you avoid is often thanks to this hidden escalator at work, always. Your voice comes from vibrating folds shaped by throat and mouth. Your voice begins as a buzz. In your larynx, 2 small folds of tissue meet, and air from the lungs sets them vibrating hundreds of times each second. That raw vibration is shaped into recognizable sound by the throat, tongue, lips, and even the cavities of your face. Change the shape of your mouth, and you sculpt vowels like a potter shaping clay. Tighten or relax the folds, and pitch rises or falls. The brain coordinates this with astonishing precision, letting you whisper, laugh, sing, or shout. Your voice also carries clues about emotion, because stress hormones change breathing and muscle tension, and listeners pick up those patterns instinctively. Puberty alters the larynx, which is why voices deepen and crack during adolescence. And when you have laryngitis, swelling disrupts vibration, turning sound rough and strained. Every conversation is a performance of anatomy, guided by feeling and memory in real time. Your cough is a high-speed blast designed to clear airways. A cough is a pressure cannon. First you inhale, then the vocal folds close, trapping air in the lungs. Chest and belly muscles squeeze, building pressure like winding a spring. Then the folds snap open and a burst of air blasts out, ripping mucus and particles from airway walls and launching them toward the mouth. It is protective, but it can also become irritating when nerves stay sensitized after infection or exposure to smoke. Different coughs can hint at different problems, from asthma's tight airways to heart failure's fluid buildup, which is why doctors listen to its sound. Some people can even cough on command, showing how the reflex has both automatic and voluntary control. Cough drops soothe partly by increasing saliva and by calming nerve endings in the throat. Still, the cough's main job is simple: to keep the pathways to the lungs clear enough for the next breath. Your sneeze can launch droplets fast enough to surprise any physicist. A sneeze starts with an intruder, a speck of pepper, dust, or pollen touching sensitive nasal tissue. Nerves fire a rapid alarm to the brainstem, and the body prepares a coordinated blast. You draw in air, close off the throat, and build pressure in the chest. Then the soft palate shifts and the airway opens, sending a turbulent jet through the nose and mouth. That jet can travel faster than many people expect, breaking fluid into a mist of droplets of different sizes. Larger droplets fall quickly, while finer ones can linger and drift, which is why sneezes matter for infection spread. Your eyes often close automatically, a protective reflex, not a sign they might pop out. Bright light triggers sneezing in some people, a trait that runs in families. The whole event is over in seconds, yet it is a reset, clearing passages so breathing can return to ease. Your saliva begins digestion before food even reaches your stomach. Before you swallow, your mouth is already doing chemistry. Saliva moistens food so it can be shaped into a smooth bolus, and it starts breaking starch into smaller sugars with an enzyme called amylase. It also carries lipase that begins working on fats, especially important for infants. Beyond digestion, saliva protects teeth by buffering acids and delivering minerals that help repair enamel after meals. It contains antimicrobial proteins that slow bacteria and keep the mouth's ecosystem in balance. When you smell dinner, saliva can increase, a preview response from the nervous system that prepares the gut. Dry mouth from anxiety or certain medicines can make swallowing difficult and raise cavity risk, showing how essential this fluid is. Your body makes a surprising amount each day, and most of it is swallowed unnoticed. In quiet moments, a swallow is the end of a chain of signals, glands, and muscles working together. Your stomach acid can dissolve many microbes that hitchhike on meals. Deep in your stomach, glands release hydrochloric acid that can be as corrosive as battery acid, at least in strength of acidity. This harsh bath helps unfold proteins in food, making them easier for enzymes to cut apart. It also serves as a security checkpoint, killing many bacteria and viruses that arrive on unwashed produce or undercooked meat. Not everything is defeated, which is why some pathogens like Helicobacter pylori have evolved tricks to survive there. To keep this acid from harming you, the stomach coats itself in a thick mucous barrier and keeps blood flow high to support repairs. When that protection fails, ulcers can form and pain can radiate after meals. Acid levels also change with age and medication, influencing how well certain nutrients are absorbed. In a way, your stomach is both a digestion chamber and a chemical moat, guarding the intestines beyond every time you eat. Your intestines move food forward with coordinated waves called peristalsis. Food does not simply fall through you. Your intestines move it along with waves of muscle contraction called peristalsis, a traveling squeeze that pushes contents forward. Segments ahead relax while segments behind tighten, creating a steady conveyor. This motion is guided by the enteric nervous system, which can run many routines without conscious control. Even if you stand on your head, these waves still carry a meal onward. After surgery, the rhythm can stall, leading to bloating and discomfort, which shows how essential it is. Fiber gives the walls something to grip, and water keeps the contents soft enough to move. The pace shifts with what you eat, with fats slowing passage to allow absorption. Between meals, sweeping waves help clear leftovers, preparing the gut for whatever comes next. When you hear your stomach growl, that sound can be these motions, mixing air and fluid as they work inside you. Your pancreas releases hormones that help control blood sugar minute by minute. Behind your stomach, the pancreas works like a quiet thermostat for fuel. When you eat, it senses rising glucose and releases insulin, a hormone that helps your cells pull sugar out of the blood and store it for later use. Between meals, when glucose begins to dip, it releases glucagon, which signals the liver to send some stored sugar back into circulation. This back and forth happens all day, keeping the brain supplied and the muscles ready. It is not only about sweets. Protein and fat change the timing too, and stress hormones can push glucose higher, as if preparing you to run. In type 1 diabetes, the immune system destroys insulin-making cells. In type 2, cells stop listening well, and the pancreas strains to keep up. Even so, in most bodies, this tiny organ balances chemistry with astonishing precision, so you can think clearly, move smoothly, and sleep steadily. Your gallbladder stores bile, then squeezes it out for fatty foods. Think of bile as the body's dish soap for dinner. The liver makes this greenish fluid continuously, but meals do not arrive on a schedule, so the gallbladder acts as a reservoir, concentrating bile while you wait. When fat enters the small intestine, hormones signal the gallbladder to contract, pushing bile through ducts into the gut. There, bile salts break big fat droplets into tiny ones, giving enzymes far more surface area to work on. This makes it easier to absorb fats and the vitamins that travel with them, like vitamins A, D, E, and K. Gallstones can form when bile components crystallize, sometimes blocking the duct and causing sharp pain. After a rich meal, many people live well without a gallbladder because the liver still makes bile, just with less storage and timing. Still, when it is present, it adds a graceful efficiency to digestion, responding right when the meal needs help. Your body stores extra glucose as glycogen in liver and muscle. Glucose is quick energy, but the bloodstream is not a pantry, so your body converts spare glucose into glycogen, a branched storage form that packs neatly inside cells. The liver keeps a supply that can be released back into the blood to steady glucose between meals, especially overnight. Muscles store their own glycogen too, but they keep it mostly for themselves, like a private fuel tank for movement. During a sprint, those stores can power intense effort when oxygen delivery becomes limiting. After exercise, muscles become especially eager to refill, which is why a meal can feel unusually satisfying after a long hike. Glycogen also binds water, so changing stores can shift body weight slightly, a detail that surprises many people. When stores run low, the body leans more on fat and can break down protein in extreme cases, showing how valuable this carbohydrate reserve is for everyday stability. Your fat tissue is an active organ that sends chemical messages. Body fat is not just stored calories, it is a signaling network. Fat cells release hormones and messenger molecules, sometimes called adipokines, that talk to the brain, liver, muscles, and immune system. Leptin is one famous example, helping report long-term energy status and influencing appetite and metabolism. Fat tissue also stores and converts certain hormones, and it can release inflammatory signals when it becomes stressed or overloaded. Where fat is stored matters too. Visceral fat, packed around organs, tends to be more metabolically active and is linked with higher health risks than fat stored under the skin. Yet fat tissue also has protective roles. It cushions organs, insulates against cold, and provides fuel during illness or famine. Researchers are exploring ways to shift fat toward healthier behavior, including encouraging more brown-like activity that burns energy as heat. In a real sense, fat is part of the body's conversation about survival, abundance, and stress, sending updates every day. Your appetite is guided by hormones that rise and fall like tides. Hunger is not simply willpower, it is biology with a schedule. Ghrelin, often called a hunger hormone, tends to rise before meals and fall after eating, nudging you toward food like a gentle alarm clock. Other signals, including peptide YY and cholecystokinin, help create fullness by slowing stomach emptying and speaking to the brain through nerves and blood. Your brain integrates these messages with smell, memory, emotion, and habit, which is why popcorn can sound irresistible even when you are not truly low on energy. Sleep changes the pattern too. Short sleep can raise hunger signals and lower satiety signals, making cravings louder the next day. Stress can also reshape appetite, sometimes increasing it and sometimes shutting it down, depending on the person and the context. Over time, the body learns your routines, expecting food at familiar hours. Understanding appetite as a tide helps explain why it can feel powerful, predictable, and sometimes surprisingly out of sync with intention. Your thirst system can trigger before you are truly dehydrated. First is a protective early warning, not a last-minute emergency siren. Sensors in your brain and blood vessels monitor salt concentration and blood volume, and they can call for water before the body becomes dangerously dry. Even the feel of drinking can begin to quiet thirst quickly, because the brain uses signals from the mouth and throat as a rapid estimate, then fine-tunes the decision once water is absorbed. Hormones help too. When blood volume drops, the kidneys release signals that increase a hormone cascade, leading to aldosterone and other changes that conserve water and salt. That is why after heavy sweating, plain water alone may not feel fully satisfying until minerals are replaced. Thirst also shifts with age, and many older adults feel it less strongly, which can raise dehydration risk. Your body is constantly balancing fluid like a careful engineer, because water affects blood pressure, temperature control, and the flow of nutrients. Feeling thirsty is your inner dashboard light, glowing early so you can respond calmly. Your body temperature is tightly regulated, yet it subtly shifts all day. Your temperature is not a single fixed number, it is a rhythm. Deep in the brain, the hypothalamus coordinates a set point that changes with time of day, activity, hormones, and sleep. In many people, temperature dips in the late night hours, helping the body settle into deeper sleep, then rises toward morning as alertness returns. Exercise can raise heat quickly, and the body answers with sweating and increased blood flow to the skin. In cold air, it narrows surface vessels and may trigger shivering to generate warmth. Even digestion produces heat, and after a meal, your body becomes slightly more thermally busy. Fever is a special case, where the set point is temporarily raised to support immune defense, often making you feel chilled at first as the body tries to reach that higher target. The impressive part is how often this regulation happens without thought. Your temperature is being adjusted every minute, like a home thermostat with a mind of its own. Your sweat cools you by evaporation, a clever physics trick. Sweat is your personal air conditioner, powered by the physics of phase change. When sweat evaporates, it steals heat from your skin, lowering body temperature without needing to cool the whole body at once. The drier the air, the easier this works, which is why humid days can feel oppressive even at lower temperatures. Sweat glands respond to heat, exercise, and stress, and the chemical mix can change depending on acclimatization. With repeated heat exposure, the body often learns to sweat earlier and more efficiently, helping protect the heart and brain. Sweat itself is mostly water, with salts and small molecules, which is why heavy sweating can lead to salt loss and cramps if replacement is too slow. There is also a social twist. Sweat is nearly odorless until skin bacteria break down some components into smelly compounds, turning cooling into scent. Still, in terms of survival, sweating is brilliant. It lets humans shed heat while moving, hunting, and working in warm climates, long after many animals must stop and pant. Your skin color can change quickly as blood vessels widen or narrow. A blush, a pale face, and a flushed forehead are all examples of blood flow choreography. Tiny muscles in the walls of surface blood vessels respond to signals from the nervous system and local chemistry, widening to release heat or narrowing to conserve it. When you are embarrassed, stress signals can open vessels in the face and neck, sending warm blood toward the surface. In cold air, vessels constrict, and the skin can look lighter as less blood reaches the top layers. During exercise, the body sends more blood to the skin to help cooling, which is why you may turn pink as your temperature rises. This constant adjustment is part of thermoregulation, but it also reflects emotion and circulation health. Some people experience Raynaud's phenomenon, where fingers temporarily lose color from intense constriction, then redden as blood rushes back. So your skin is not only a covering, it is a living display of flow, temperature, and feeling, changing in real time. Your immune system remembers past infections with long-lasting cellular training. After your body meets a germ, it keeps a quiet scrapbook of the encounter. Special immune cells learn the invader's signature and save it for later. Some become memory B cells, ready to make targeted antibodies quickly. Others become memory T cells, prepared to coordinate attacks or destroy infected cells. This is why a second encounter can feel smaller or never felt at all. Vaccines use the same principle, teaching without the full danger of disease. Memory is not stored in one place. It is spread through blood, lymph, and tissues. Some memory cells patrol, while others take up residence in organs like the lungs. Over time, these cells can persist for years, even decades. Yet memory is also selective, and it fades for some infections faster than others. Your immune system is not only a shield, it is a learning machine, improving with experience. Your white blood cells can squeeze through vessel walls to reach trouble. When tissue sends out distress signals, immune cells in the bloodstream begin to slow down. They roll along vessel walls, as if searching for the exact exit. Then they latch on firmly, using molecular grips like tiny climbing hands. Next comes the remarkable part. They flatten and slip between vessel lining cells. This process is called diapedesis, and it is like threading a moving needle. The vessel does not need to tear open. It briefly rearranges junctions and lets cells pass. Once outside, the immune cells follow chemical scent trails toward infection or injury. Neutrophils often arrive first, fast and aggressive, while other cells follow with different jobs. This exit system helps explain swelling, because fluid and cells move into tissues together. It also shows why circulation is more than transport. It is a rapid response highway with hidden off-ramps. In minutes, help can appear exactly where it is needed. Your body can create millions of antibody designs through genetic shuffling. Your immune system does not wait to invent antibodies after an infection begins. Instead, it builds an enormous library in advance through a clever genetic mix and match process. In developing B cells, gene segments are cut and rejoined in new combinations, like assembling phrases from word fragments. Extra variation is added at the joining points, increasing diversity even more. The result is a vast range of possible antibody shapes, each able to bind a different target. When a germ arrives, only the best-fitting B cells are selected to multiply. Then, in specialized lymph node zones, those cells can refine their antibodies through rapid mutation and selection, improving the fit over time. This is why your response can become more precise days into an illness. It is also why the immune system can recognize unfamiliar threats, including new strains that differ slightly. Your body is running a molecular design studio, constantly generating options. Your lymph system drains fluid and returns it to the bloodstream. Blood vessels leak a little fluid into tissues on purpose, delivering nutrients and making space for exchange. But that fluid must be collected, or swelling would build everywhere. The lymph system is the return route, a network of tiny vessels that sip up excess fluid and carry it back. Along the way, lymph passes through lymph nodes, which act like security stations. Immune cells inside sample what is moving through, looking for signs of infection or damage. When nodes swell during illness, it is often because those cells are multiplying and working hard. Lymph vessels have valves, helping flow move one direction, and movement helps push it along. Walking, breathing, and muscle contractions gently massage lymph forward. This system also absorbs fats from the intestine, sending them into circulation by a different route than blood. Without lymph, fluid balance would fail, immunity would be slower, and digestion would lose an important pathway. It is a quiet river beneath your skin, always flowing. Your spleen filters blood and recycles worn-out red cells. Your spleen is like a careful quality inspector for your bloodstream. Blood flows through its spongy chambers, where cells must squeeze through narrow passages. Healthy red blood cells bend and slip through, but older or damaged ones get trapped. Specialized immune cells then break them down, salvaging valuable components for reuse. Iron is recovered and sent back into circulation for new hemoglobin. The spleen also stores a reserve of blood cells and platelets ready for sudden need. During some infections, it becomes more active, and it can enlarge as it works. It also helps fight certain bacteria by producing antibodies and filtering microbes from blood directly. People can live without a spleen, but they often need extra protection against particular infections because a key filter is missing. This organ does not get much attention, yet it quietly keeps your blood fresh, your resources recycled, and your defenses alert. Your tonsils are immune tissue stationed at a busy gateway. At the back of your throat, tonsils sit where air and food first pass inward. They are made of immune tissue with deep folds that increase contact with what you inhale and swallow. This makes them excellent early warning posts, sampling particles and teaching immune cells what is common and what is dangerous. In childhood, they can be especially active because the immune system is building its experience. When tonsils become infected, they swell and hurt, a sign that local immune cells are battling invaders. They can also trap debris in their crevices, sometimes forming small stones that cause bad breath. Removing tonsils can help people with repeated severe infections or breathing problems, though it slightly changes the throat's immune landscape. Even when quiet, tonsils are not useless lumps. They are part of a ring of protective tissue, helping decide which microbes are harmless neighbors and which ones need a response. Your inflammation response is protective, but it must be carefully controlled. Inflammation is the body's way of bringing help, fast. When tissue is injured or infected, blood vessels widen and become leakier. This lets immune cells and proteins enter the area, delivering repair tools and defense. Heat, redness, swelling, and pain are signals that the response is underway. Pain can be useful because it encourages rest and protection of the injured part. But inflammation is powerful, and if it stays on too long, it can damage healthy tissue. That is why the body also sends calming signals that resolve the response once the threat is handled. Some diseases involve inflammation that is misdirected, prolonged, or excessive, turning protection into harm. Lifestyle factors can influence this balance, including sleep, stress, diet, and chronic infection. The immune system is like a fire brigade, and inflammation is the water cannon. It can save a building, but only if aimed well and turned off at the right time. Your fever can slow some microbes while boosting immune reactions. A fever is not simply overheating. It is a deliberate change in the body's thermostat. During infection, immune signals tell the brain to raise the temperature set point. You may feel cold at first, because your body works to reach that higher target by shivering and conserving heat. Many microbes grow best at normal body temperatures, so even a small rise can stress them. Meanwhile, certain immune processes become more effective, like faster movement of immune cells and improved signaling. Fever also encourages rest, which shifts energy toward defense and repair. Still, fever is not always helpful, and high fevers can be dangerous, especially in young children or vulnerable adults. That is why doctors balance comfort, safety, and the body's natural strategy. Medicines can lower fever by adjusting the set point back down, which is why you often sweat as the fever breaks. In a strange way, fever is the body choosing to run hotter for a while, using heat as a tool in its fight. Your body hosts viruses that live quietly inside your microbiome. When people hear virus, they often imagine illness, but many viruses live with us peacefully. Some infect bacteria rather than human cells, and these are called bacteriophages. They can shape which bacterial species thrive in the gut, skin, and mouth, acting like unseen gardeners. Other viruses can persist in the body in a dormant or low-level state, kept in check by immunity. Scientists sometimes call this collection the human virome, and it may influence digestion, inflammation, and disease risk in ways we are only beginning to map. The story is complex because viruses can sometimes protect us by controlling harmful bacteria, yet they can also contribute to imbalance if conditions shift. Changes in diet, antibiotics, travel, and stress may reshape this viral community indirectly. This reminds us that you is not a single organism, but an ecosystem. Even the smallest passengers can affect the whole journey, quietly and continuously. Your gut and brain communicate through nerves, hormones, and immune signals. Your gut is not just a digestion tube, it is a communication hub. A major nerve called the vagus carries messages between the intestines and the brainstem. Hormones released after meals can influence mood, alertness, and cravings, shaping how you feel long after you swallow. Immune cells in the gut also signal the brain, especially when the gut lining is irritated or inflamed. This is one reason stress can change digestion and why digestive discomfort can affect emotions. The gut has its own nerve network, sometimes called the second brain, which coordinates movement and secretion locally. Meanwhile, microbes in the gut produce molecules that can influence nerve activity and immune balance. Researchers are exploring links between gut health and anxiety, depression, and neurodegenerative diseases, though many details are still being tested. What is already clear is that the brain listens to the gut, and the gut listens back. Your feelings and your digestion are not separate worlds, they are partners in constant conversation. Your brain builds reality by predicting what you will sense next. Instead of waiting passively for the world to arrive, your nervous system is constantly guessing. It uses past experience to predict what should happen next, then compares those predictions with incoming signals from AI's ears and skin. When the match is close, perception feels smooth and effortless. When the match is off, the surprise gets your attention, and the brain updates its model. This is why you can read messy handwriting, recognize a friend in a crowd, or understand speech in a noisy room. Your brain fills in missing pieces because it expects patterns. It also explains certain illusions, where the prediction wins over the raw data. Even the feeling of your body is partly predicted, which is why a phantom limb can hurt after an amputation. Perception is not a direct feed. It is a living negotiation between expectation and evidence, renewed every heartbeat as you move through the world. Your nerves send signals with electricity, powered by moving ions. Your thoughts and sensations ride on tiny charged particles. Neurons keep different ions, like sodium and potassium, on opposite sides of their membranes, creating stored electrical tension. When a neuron fires, channels open in a precise sequence, and ions rush across, flipping the voltage like a falling row of dominoes. That wave is an action potential, and it can travel down a nerve fiber at impressive speed. At the end, the signal does not jump as a spark. It triggers chemical messengers that cross a microscopic gap to the next cell. Then the next cell decides whether to pass the message onward. All of this runs on energy, because pumps must reset the ion balance after each impulse. Your body spends fuel to keep nerves ready, moment after moment. Every touch, every word you understand, every decision to move a finger, is built from these quiet ionic migrations, turning chemistry into electricity and electricity into meaning. Your reflexes can move a muscle before you feel the touch. A reflex is your body choosing speed over deliberation. When you step on something sharp, sensory nerves send an urgent signal into the spinal cord. There, the message can be routed through a simple circuit that immediately activates motor neurons, pulling the limb away. Only after that movement begins does the brain receive enough information to form the full feeling of pain and the story of what happened. This design keeps you safer, because waiting to consciously decide would be slow. Reflexes can also protect posture. If you stumble, stretch receptors in muscles detect the sudden change and tighten the right groups to keep you upright. Doctors tap a knee with a small hammer for a reason. That quick kick reveals whether nerves and spinal circuits are working as expected. A reflex is not a lesser form of intelligence. It is an automatic safety program running beneath awareness, guarding you faster than thought. Your spinal cord handles rapid decisions, like pulling away from heat. Think of the spinal cord as more than a cable. It is a busy control center that can process incoming signals and send outgoing commands without consulting the brain first. Inside are networks that coordinate reflexes, balance responses, and rhythmic patterns like walking. In animals, spinal circuits can generate stepping motions even with reduced brain input, showing how much pattern-making lives in the cord itself. When you touch a hot pan, the spinal cord can organize a whole sequence, withdraw the hand, shift the body, and tighten supporting muscles to keep you stable. Meanwhile, it sends updates upward, so the brain can learn, remember, and choose what to do next. This division of labor saves time and protects you. It also helps explain rehabilitation after injury, where therapy can train remaining pathways and circuits to take on new roles. The spinal cord is a fast, local manager, making urgent choices so the brain can focus on bigger plans. Your brain rewires after injury more than people once believed. For a long time, scientists thought adult brain tissue was mostly fixed. Now we know it can reorganize in surprising ways after damage. If a stroke injures one region, nearby circuits may strengthen, and distant regions can sometimes take on new tasks, especially with therapy. The brain can learn to use alternative routes, like traffic finding new streets after a bridge closes. This is why targeted rehabilitation, repeated practice, and time matter so much. The famous cases include people relearning speech, recovering movement, or adapting to vision loss by sharpening other senses. Even when a function does not fully return, the brain can build workarounds, turning deliberate effort into smoother habits. This rewiring is not magic, and it has limits. But it is real, and it is driven by use. What you practice, the brain prioritizes. Recovery is partly biology and partly training, a partnership between healing tissue and persistent repetition. Your memory changes each time you recall it, updating like a story. Remembering is not opening a vault. It is rebuilding. When you recall an event, the brain reactivates a pattern of activity across many regions, then stitches it into a coherent seam. In that moment, the memory becomes flexible again, and it can be strengthened, weakened, or altered before it is stored once more. This process is called reconsolidation, and it helps the brain keep memories relevant, connected to new knowledge and current goals. It is also why two people can remember the same day differently, and why confident recollection is not always accurate. Emotion plays a role too. A frightening detail may become brighter, while neutral details fade. Even the act of telling a story can reshape it, because language and attention highlight certain parts. Memory is less like a recording and more like a living draft, revised gently over time. This is not a flaw. It is an adaptation, allowing the past to stay useful in the present. Your sleep strengthens learning by replaying patterns of neural activity. While you sleep, your brain is not simply resting. It is practicing. During certain stages, especially deep sleep and some phases of dream-rich sleep, the brain can reactivate patterns linked to recent learning. Researchers have observed replay in brain areas involved in navigation and skill building, as if the brain is rehearsing yesterday's experiences at night. This replay helps stabilize fragile new memories and integrate them with older knowledge. That is why a piece of music, a new dance step, or a study session can feel clearer after a good night's sleep. Sleep also helps decide what matters. Emotional experiences may be strengthened, while less important details are allowed to fade, making room for what is useful. When sleep is cut short, learning often becomes slower and more effortful. You can still learn, but the brain loses a powerful offline tool. In the quiet of night, it is organizing, refining, and storing, turning practice into skill without asking your permission. Your dreams can mix real memories into brand new scenes. Dreams are a kind of creative collage. The brain pulls fragments from memory, emotion, and recent experiences, then burns them into scenes that can feel vivid and strange. This mixing may help the brain explore possibilities, test fears safely, and connect ideas that were separate during the day. That is why a dream can place your childhood home next to your current job, or combine a friend's face with an unfamiliar voice. The brain areas that generate imagery and emotion can be highly active in dreams, while regions that enforce strict logic may be quieter, which allows impossible stories to feel normal. Dreams can also reflect what matters to you emotionally, echoing stress, excitement, or unresolved questions. Some people find problem-solving insights after dreaming, not because dreams are prophetic, but because they loosen the usual boundaries between thoughts. Even nightmares may be part of learning, rehearsing threat responses in a safe simulation. Whatever their purpose, dreams reveal a mind that never truly switches off, even in darkness. Your body clock is set by light, even on cloudy days. Inside your brain is a timekeeper that coordinates daily rhythms, and light is its strongest cue. Special cells in the retina send signals to the brain's master clock, letting it know when morning has arrived. This happens even if you do not feel the light as bright, because the system is sensitive to overall daylight levels and certain wavelengths. Morning light helps shift the clock earlier, while bright light late at night can push it later, which is why screens can make sleep feel delayed for some people. The talk then helps coordinate many body functions, including alertness, digestion timing, and temperature rhythms. When you travel across time zones, the clock does not instantly update, and that mismatch is jet lag. Over days, exposure to local light gradually resets it. Regular morning daylight, even through cloud cover, can act like a gentle anchor, telling the body when to wake and when to wind down. Your sense of time is partly a biological sense, guided by the sky. Your hormone rhythms help decide when you feel awake or sleepy. Your day is guided by chemical tides. Cortisol, often linked with alertness, typically rises toward morning, helping you wake and mobilize energy. Melatonin, a hormone tied to darkness, usually rises in the evening, encouraging sleepiness and signaling that night has arrived. These rhythms interact with your body clock and with your habits, like meal timing and exercise. They also shift with seasons, age, stress, and shift work. When rhythms are disrupted, you may feel wired at bedtime or sluggish in the morning, even if you try to force a schedule. Hormones influence more than sleep. They affect hunger, body temperature, and mood, creating a whole body pattern of day and night. This is why a consistent routine can feel so powerful. It teaches your hormonal system what to expect, and the body prepares in advance. Falling asleep is not only a decision. It is a coordinated transition, guided by hormones, light, and the quiet signals of rest. Your eyes see only a tiny slice of light the universe emits. Beyond the colors you know, light stretches in both directions into realms your eyes cannot touch. On one side are longer waves, like infrared and radio, carrying warmth and distant broadcasts. On the other side are shorter waves, like ultraviolet and X-rays, packed with more energetic punches. Your eyes are tuned to a narrow band that happens to travel well through Earth's atmosphere and through water, a sweet spot for life on this planet. Many animals sample different slices. Bees notice ultraviolet patterns on flowers. Some snakes sense infrared heat. Even humans can detect parts of the invisible world with tools, translating radio waves into sound or X-rays into images. So the scene you see is not the full universe. It is a carefully selected channel shaped by evolution and physics, giving you enough to navigate, recognize faces, and find food, while leaving vast hidden spectra just beyond your perception. Your color vision relies on 3 cone types, blended by the brain. Color begins with 3 kinds of cone cells, each more sensitive to a different range of wavelengths. None of them reports red or blue on its own. Instead, each cone reports its level of activity, and your brain compares the pattern across all 3. From those comparisons, it creates the experience of thousands of shades, including subtle differences between teal and turquoise, or cream and ivory. Lighting changes the puzzle. A white shirt can look bluish in shade and yellowish indoors, yet your brain often corrects for context, keeping colors stable enough to trust. This blending can also fool you. Some famous visual illusions shift color simply by changing surrounding tones, proving that color is partly interpretation. People vary too. Some have color blindness when one cone type is missing or altered. A few may have an extra cone type, potentially seeing richer distinctions. Color is a story your brain tells from 3 inputs, and it tells it beautifully. Your ears separate voices and noise by using timing differences between sides. In a crowded room, your ears are doing quiet geometry. A sound reaches one ear a tiny fraction of a second before the other, and it often arrives slightly louder on the nearer side. Your brain measures those differences with astonishing precision, using them to locate where a voice is coming from. That location information becomes a filter. It helps you focus on the person in front of you and dampen the clatter behind, a skill sometimes called the cocktail party effect. The outer ear also shapes sound depending on direction, adding subtle spectral clues that help you judge whether something is above, below, or behind. When hearing in one ear is reduced, this spatial sorting becomes harder, and noisy spaces can feel exhausting. With 2 healthy ears, your brain can build an acoustic map, tracking multiple talkers at once, letting one sentence rise to the top like a melody you choose to follow. Your sense of touch includes pressure, vibration, temperature, and pain. Touch is not one sense, it is a chorus. Some receptors respond to steady pressure, helping you feel a handshake or the weight of a blanket. Others respond to flutter and vibration, letting you detect a phone buzz or the texture of corduroy. Separate sensors notice warming and cooling, giving you the comfort of a hot mug or the warning of icy air. Then there are pain receptors, which react to extreme heat, sharp edges, and chemical irritation, sounding an alarm when tissue is at risk. These signals travel along different nerve fibers at different speeds, which is why a pinprick can feel immediate, followed by a slower, dull bake. Your brain blends all of this into a single experience of contact, adjusting it based on attention and expectation. That is why a gentle touch can soothe, and why the same stimulus can feel startling when unexpected. Your skin is a sensory instrument, playing multiple notes at once, every second you are awake. Your pain system can be turned up or down by attention. Pain is real, but it is not a simple volume knob set by injury alone. Your brain decides how much of the signal reaches consciousness, using context like danger, safety, and focus. In a crisis, someone can be wounded and barely notice until later, because survival demands action first. In calmer moments, the same body signal can feel louder because the brain has space to listen. The spinal cord also plays a role, filtering messages before they reach the brain and sending some back down pathways that dampen pain. This is one reason slow breathing, relaxation, or distraction can help, because they shift the nervous system away from high alert. Placebo effects show the same principle in a different form. Belief and expectation can recruit real chemistry, including natural opioids, changing how pain is processed. Chronic pain can happen when the system stays sensitized, amplifying normal signals into persistent alarm. Understanding pain as a protective interpretation, not only a damage report, opens doors to treatment, patience, and hope. Your brain can ignore your nose's constant smell to highlight new odors. When you first walk into a bakery, the smell can feel huge, warm, and almost visible. Then, minutes later, it fades, even though the air has not changed. This is sensory adaptation, and it helps you notice what is new, rather than what is constant. Your smell receptors reduce their response to steady stimulation, and your brain also subtracts familiar background signals. That makes sudden changes stand out, like smoke, gas, or spoiled food, which can matter for safety. It is why you may not notice your own home scent, while a visitor does immediately. Adaptation also keeps you from being overwhelmed by your own body odors, letting attention stay on the world outside. Yet the system resets quickly. Step outside for a moment, return, and the smell returns too. This selective fading shows that perception is not only detection, it is prioritization. Your brain is quietly curating the air you experience, turning down the constant hum so a new note can be heard. Your tongue senses texture with touch nerves, not taste buds alone. The pleasure of food is often about feel. Crunch, creaminess, fizz, and heat are detected by touch and temperature nerves in the mouth, not by taste receptors. That is why a cold can make food seem dull. When smell fades, texture becomes the main entertainment. The tongue has dense touch sensors, making it exquisitely sensitive to tiny changes in surface and thickness. It can detect grit in a sauce, the snap of a fresh apple, or the smoothness of melted chocolate. These signals combine with saliva flow and jaw movement, creating a full mouthfeel that can make the same flavor seem entirely different. Spicy foods add another layer because capsaicin activates heat and pain pathways, producing a burn that is not a taste at all. Carbonation tingles through chemical and mechanical stimulation, turning a drink into a lively sensation. Food scientists and chefs play with this constantly, knowing that delight lives in sound and feel as much as in sweetness or salt. Your tongue is a tactile explorer, surveying each bite like a landscape. Your body senses limb position without sight, using proprioception. Close your eyes and touch your nose, and you can do it with surprising accuracy. That ability comes from proprioception, the sense of where your body parts are in space. Sensors in muscles and tendons report stretch and tension, while receptors in joints add information about angles and movement. Your brain integrates these signals into a living map, updated moment by moment. It is how you climb stairs in the dark, type without watching your fingers, and walk without staring at your feet. Proprioception can be trained. Dancers, gymnasts, and musicians refine it until movements become precise and graceful. It can also be disrupted. Alcohol, fatigue, certain nerve disorders, or inner ear problems can blur the body map, making balance harder and motion clumsier. Some people regain it after injury through targeted rehabilitation, retraining the brain's interpretation of incoming signals. This sense is so constant you rarely notice it, yet it is the hidden guide behind every smooth gesture, every reach, every step. Your inner ear helps stabilize vision by moving eyes opposite your head. When you turn your head, the world does not smear into a blur, and that is thanks to a fast reflex linking inner ear sensors to the eye muscles. The semicircular canals detect rotation, and almost instantly they trigger the vestibulo-ocular reflex, moving your eyes in the opposite direction. It happens so quickly that you can keep reading a sign while walking, or watch a friend's face while nodding. You can feel it by gently shaking your head while focusing on a word. With normal function, the word stays clear. When the system is weakened by illness or injury, motion can make the world bounce, and nausea can follow because vision and balance signals disagree. The brain can adapt over time, but it takes practice and exposure. This reflex is a quiet partnership between ear and eye, turning motion into stability. It lets you be a moving animal in a moving world without losing the sharpness of what you're looking at. Your brain fills in the blind spot where the optic nerve exits. Each eye has a small region with no photoreceptors, where the optic nerve leaves the retina. That is the blind spot, a real gap in the raw image. Yet you almost never notice it, because your brain smoothly fills it in using surrounding patterns and information from the other eye. It is a little act of visual storytelling, done continuously and confidently. You can find the blind spot with a simple test, but in everyday life it disappears behind the brain's best guess. This filling in reveals something important. Seeing is not just sensing, it is constructing. The brain prefers a stable world, and it is willing to invent missing details to achieve it. Usually that invention is accurate enough to trust. Sometimes it can mislead, like when camouflage blends into its background, or when a small object is missed in a busy scene. Still, the result is remarkable. Even with a built-in hoe, your vision feels seamless, like a panorama with no gaps, because your brain is always completing the picture. Your blood type is a surface signature on red cells, not a personality. Those letters are really a label made of tiny sugars and proteins on the outside of your red blood cells. Your immune system reads that label like an ID badge. If unfamiliar blood enters, antibodies can grab it, clump cells together, and cause serious trouble. That is why transfusions must be carefully matched. The ABO system is only part of the story, because the Rh factor also matters, especially in pregnancy. Blood types vary across populations, shaped by history, migration, and even pressures from infectious disease. Some research links certain types with slightly different risks for specific conditions, but it never turns into destiny, and it certainly does not predict temperament. What it truly represents is compatibility, a practical code used in hospitals every day. It is a reminder that the immune system is always asking, is this me or not me, even when you feel perfectly well? Your red blood cells lack a nucleus, leaving more room for hemoglobin. As red blood cells mature, they perform a dramatic act of specialization. They eject their nucleus and many internal structures, sacrificing the ability to divide or repair themselves. In return, they gain space for hemoglobin, the protein that binds oxygen and makes blood such an efficient delivery system. Their final shape is a flexible biconcave disc, thin in the middle, which increases surface area for gas exchange and helps them bend through capillaries narrower than the cell itself. Because they have no nucleus, they cannot make new proteins to fix wear and tear, so their lifespan is limited. Over time, their membranes stiffen and their enzymes tire, and the body replaces them. This design is bold. It is a cell built for one job, carried out with relentless repetition, millions of times, without rest. Every breath you take relies on these nucleus-free couriers, packed with hemoglobin like tiny oxygen cargo ships. Your body recycles iron from old blood cells with impressive efficiency. iron is precious, and your body treats it like a resource that must not be wasted. When red blood cells age and get removed, their hemoglobin is dismantled, and the iron is carefully pulled out and stored. A protein called transferrin then carries iron through the blood to places that need it, especially bone marrow, where new hemoglobin is being built. Another protein, ferritin, holds iron safely inside cells, preventing it from causing harmful chemical reactions. The liver helps regulate these flows, and the hormone hepcidin acts like a gatekeeper, controlling how much iron is absorbed from food and released from stores. This recycling is why many people can lose only small amounts of blood before becoming iron deficient, and why chronic bleeding can quietly drain reserves. Still, on ordinary days, your iron economy is remarkably circular, turning yesterday's blood into tomorrow's oxygen-carrying power. Your arteries expand with each heartbeat, smoothing blood flow like shock absorbers. With every heartbeat, blood is pushed out in a pulse, not a steady stream. Large arteries respond by stretching outward, storing some of that energy in their elastic walls. Between beats, they recoil, releasing the stored energy and helping keep blood moving smoothly. This effect, called the Windkessel function, protects delicate capillaries from sudden pressure swings and keeps organs supplied even when the heart briefly relaxes. The artery lining also releases signals that adjust tone, widening when tissues need more flow and narrowing when pressure must be maintained. Over years, arteries can stiffen from aging, high blood pressure, or plaque, reducing their ability to cushion pulses. That stiffness can make the heart work harder and can change how pressure waves travel through the body. So arteries are not rigid pipes. They are living, responsive tubes that pulse with you, converting each heartbeat into a steadier river, beat after beat, hour after hour. Your veins use one-way valves to help blood climb against gravity. Veins carry blood back to the heart, often from below it, which means they must work against gravity. Many veins, especially in the legs, contain one-way valves that open when blood moves upward and close if it tries to slip back down. Your muscles provide the pump. Each step squeezes veins, pushing blood forward through the valves, like pushing toothpaste through a tube with check doors. Deep breathing helps too, because pressure changes in the chest draw venous blood upward. When valves weaken or veins stretch, blood can pool, leading to swelling or varicose veins. Long flights and long periods of stillness can slow venous return, which is why movement matters for circulation. This system is elegant because it borrows force from actions you already do, walking and breathing, turning ordinary motion into a return trip for blood. Your veins are the homebound lanes of circulation, and their valves are the quiet engineers that keep the climb possible. Your body can redirect blood quickly, prioritizing brain and heart. When danger appears, your circulation can change its route in seconds. The sympathetic nervous system signals certain vessels to constrict, especially in the skin and digestive tract, while vessels supplying the brain and heart are protected. Blood pressure rises, the heart beats more forcefully, and oxygen-rich blood is sent where it matters most for survival. This is why fear can make your hands cold, your mouth dry, and your stomach uneasy, because blood is being diverted away from digestion and toward action. During heavy exercise, blood flow is also redistributed, with working muscles receiving a larger share, while less urgent regions temporarily receive less. The body manages this with finely tuned control of vessel diameter, using nerves and local chemical signals from tissues. It is a moving budget of oxygen and nutrients, constantly rebalanced. Most of the time, you never feel it. Yet it is one reason you can sprint, lift, or react quickly without your most vital organs ever being undersupplied. Your lungs match airflow and blood flow to maximize oxygen pickup. For oxygen to move into blood efficiently, the lungs must align ventilation, where air goes, with perfusion, where blood goes. When a region of lung receives plenty of air, nearby vessels widen to send more blood there. When a region is poorly ventilated, vessels narrow, redirecting blood toward better aired areas. This local adjustment helps prevent wasted effort, because oxygen cannot enter blood that passes through airless spaces. Gravity also shapes the pattern, with different areas of the lung receiving different amounts of blood depending on body position. The lungs adapt as you change posture, exercise, or climb to higher altitude. This matching is one reason you can increase oxygen uptake when you start moving, without needing conscious control. It is also why certain lung diseases cause shortness of breath, because matching breaks down and blood may pass through regions that cannot oxygenate it well. Your lungs are not only bellows. They are a smart exchanger, constantly balancing air and blood like a careful dance partner. Your cells constantly repair DNA damage caused by ordinary metabolism. Even in a calm day, your cells face a steady drizzle of DNA damage. Normal metabolism produces reactive molecules that can nick DNA bases, and sunlight, chemicals, and radiation add more challenges. Yet most of the time you stay healthy because cells carry repair crews that patrol and fix errors. Some enzymes cut out damaged bases and replace them. Others correct mismatches that slip in during DNA copying. There are systems for single-strand breaks and for more dangerous double-strand breaks, each with different tools and safeguards. Cells also pause their division cycle when damage is detected, buying time for repairs before copying proceeds. When damage is too severe, cells may trigger self-destruction, protecting the body from unstable mutations. Cancer can arise when these protections fail, which is why DNA repair is one of the deepest layers of health maintenance you never feel. Your body is quietly proofreading life every moment, keeping the instruction book readable while you live, breathe, and sleep. Your chromosomes end with telomeres, protective caps that change with age. At the ends of chromosomes are telomeres, repeating DNA sequences that act like protective tips, similar to the plastic on shoelaces. Each time a cell divides, telomeres tend to shorten a little, partly because copying the very end of DNA is tricky. When telomeres become too short, cells may stop dividing, entering a state called senescence, which can protect against uncontrolled growth, but can also contribute to aging tissues. Some cells, like certain stem cells and many cancer cells, use an enzyme called telomerase to rebuild telomeres, extending their ability to divide. Lifestyle factors such as chronic stress, poor sleep, and inflammation have been associated with faster telomere shortening, though cause and effect can be complex. Telomeres are not a simple clock, but they are a biological record of cellular wear. They remind us that aging is not one process. It is many small processes, including how often cells must renew and how well they are protected during that renewal. Your cells talk using chemical signals that act like tiny text messages. Every moment, your body is buzzing with conversations you cannot hear. One cell releases a molecule, another cell catches it with a matching receptor, and suddenly, a whole set of actions begins. Some messages travel only a hair's breadth to nearby neighbors, coordinating repair after a scrape or tightening a vessel to control heat loss. Others ride the bloodstream like postal mail, reaching distant organs and changing appetite, mood, or growth. These signals can be fast, like adrenaline preparing you to react, or slow, like hormones guiding puberty and aging. Cells also whisper with immune signals, flagging danger, calling reinforcements, or declaring peace when the threat is gone. Even a single cell can send different messages depending on context, as if changing tone mid-sentence. What feels like one body is really a council of trillions, negotiating constantly so you can stay steady, flexible, and alive. Your body makes new proteins every moment, folding them into working shapes. Proteins are your body's tools, and they are being built right now. Ribosomes read genetic instructions like a recipe, linking amino acids into long chains. But a chain is not a tool yet. It must fold into a precise shape, with loops, spirals, and pockets that let it grip other molecules or catalyze reactions. Cells even hire helpers called chaperones, which guide folding and prevent tangles, especially during stress. A protein might become a muscle filament, a hormone receptor, a clotting factor, or an enzyme that breaks down a toxin. Many proteins are short-lived, replaced constantly so the cell can adapt to changing needs. Misfolding matters because a wrongly shaped protein can fail quietly or clump dangerously, which is why quality control systems patrol and recycle mistakes. You are not built once and then maintained. You are rebuilt in pieces, continuously, with origami-like precision, turning raw ingredients into living function. Your muscles grow by adding proteins, not by multiplying whole new fibers. When you get stronger, your muscles do not usually create brand new fibers, like a plant sprouting extra stems. Instead, existing fibers thicken. Resistance exercise creates tiny disruptions that signal the muscle to adapt, and during recovery it adds contractile proteins, increasing the machinery that produces force. This process needs raw materials, especially amino acids, and it needs time, because growth happens most during rest, not during the workout itself. Nerves also improve their coordination, so strength can rise even before visible changes appear. Over weeks, fibers can add more glycogen and water, making them look fuller, while deeper structural changes build lasting power. Hormones, sleep, and progressive overload all influence the speed and quality of the adaptation. If training is too intense without recovery, the body may stay inflamed and progress can stall. Muscle growth is less like building a new engine and more like upgrading the parts inside an engine you already own, one careful layer at a time. Your brown fat can burn fuel to create warmth, especially in infants. Not all body fat is designed to store energy for later. Brown fat is built to spend it right away. It contains many mitochondria, giving it a darker color, and it uses a special mechanism that turns fuel into heat instead of the usual energy currency. This is especially important for babies who lose heat quickly and cannot shiver effectively at first. Brown fat warms them quietly, like a hidden heating pad around the shoulders and upper back. Adults can retain some brown fat too, and cold exposure can make it more active, which has made scientists curious about its potential role in metabolism. The idea is simple but powerful, an organ-like tissue that can burn calories for warmth without movement. It also shows that temperature and energy balance are deeply linked. Your body does not only decide how much to store, it also decides when to waste energy on purpose, because warmth can be worth the cost. Your body's water is carefully balanced. Even small shifts matter. Water is the medium of life, and your body guards it with surprising strictness. Too little water and blood volume drops. Temperature control worsens, and cells struggle to keep their chemistry stable. Too much water can dilute salts, affecting nerve and muscle signaling, and in severe cases, it can become dangerous. The body manages this balance with thirst, kidney adjustments, and hormones that fine-tune how much water is saved or released. Water is not only in your blood. It fills cells, surrounds tissues, and lubricates joints. It helps carry nutrients, remove wastes, and maintain blood pressure. Even your brain's function depends on the right concentration of salts in that water. That is why dehydration can feel like headache, dizziness, or mental fog, and why overhydration without electrolytes can cause confusion and cramps. Many systems, from sweat glands to the heart, are constantly adjusting to keep water and salts in a stable zone. You are, in a real sense, a moving ocean with a tightly controlled shoreline. Your kidneys decide what to keep by reabsorbing useful molecules. When the kidneys filter blood, the first fluid produced is not a final waste product. It contains valuable things: water, glucose, amino acids, and salts, all mixed together like a rough draft. Along the nephron's winding tubes, the body selectively reabsorbs what it wants to keep, moving it back into the bloodstream. Transport proteins act like doormen, pulling specific molecules across cell membranes and leaving others behind. This is how the body keeps nutrients from being lost in urine and maintains stable levels of sodium, potassium, and bicarbonate. The system is adaptive. After a salty meal, it can excrete more sodium. During dehydration, it can conserve water. In diabetes, when blood glucose is high, the reabsorption system can become overwhelmed, and glucose spills into urine, dragging water with it. Many medications work by changing reabsorption, adjusting blood pressure or blood sugar through kidney chemistry. Your kidneys are not passive filters. They are decision makers, constantly sorting what should return and what should leave. Your urine concentration changes based on hormones that sense hydration. Your urine is a report card on the body's water management. When you are well hydrated, urine tends to be lighter and more plentiful because the kidneys can afford to let water go. When water is scarce, the body releases a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or AD, which tells the kidneys to reclaim more water from the forming urine. The result is darker, more concentrated urine in smaller amounts. This change can happen quickly, especially after sweating, vomiting, or spending time in heat. The kidneys respond by adjusting channels that move water back into the blood, and they also manage salts so the body's chemistry stays balanced. Alcohol disrupts this by suppressing ADH, which is why it can increase urination and leave you dehydrated. Some medical conditions also affect ADH or kidney responsiveness, leading to abnormal thirst or urine output. Most days, though, this system works quietly, tuning output to match intake with elegant precision. Your body is always reading your hydration status, then rewriting the recipe for what it lets go. Your body produces vitamin D using sunlight and cholesterol in skin. Vitamin D is unusual because your body can make it, rather than relying entirely on food. When certain wavelengths of sunlight reach the skin, they trigger a chemical change in a cholesterol-derived molecule, creating a precursor that is then processed by the liver and kidneys into an active form. That active form helps regulate calcium and phosphorus, supporting bone strength and many other cellular functions. Sun exposure, skin pigmentation, latitude, season, clothing, and sunscreen can all influence how much is produced. Too little sunlight can contribute to deficiency, while too much sunlight raises skin cancer risk. So the balance is personal and often best guided by medical advice and blood testing. Diet and supplements can help when sunlight is limited. Vitamin D also interacts with the immune system in complex ways, and researchers continue to explore those links. What feels like a simple sunbeam can become a hormone-like signal, created in the skin, refined by organs, then used throughout the body. It is chemistry that begins in daylight and ends in living tissue. Your bones store calcium, releasing it when blood levels dip. Calcium is essential for muscle contraction, nerve signaling, and many cell processes, so the body keeps blood calcium within a narrow range. Bones serve as the main reservoir, holding a large supply locked into mineral structure. When blood calcium begins to drop, parathyroid hormone signals bones to release small amounts and signals kidneys to conserve calcium while activating vitamin D pathways that increase absorption from the gut. When calcium is plentiful, the system shifts direction, encouraging storage again. This constant exchange is why bone health is tied to more than strength. It is part of whole body stability. Over time, if the body must withdraw too much calcium, bones can weaken, especially when diet is low in calcium or vitamin D, or when hormones change with age. Weight-bearing activity helps because it encourages bones to maintain density and structure. Your skeleton is not only support and protection. It is a living mineral bank, making deposits and withdrawals every day to keep your blood chemistry steady. Your fingerprint ridges improve grip by channeling moisture away from skin. Look closely at a fingertip, and you will see a landscape of ridges and valleys, shaped before you were even born. Those ridges do more than leave marks on glass. They can improve contact with surfaces by managing tiny films of moisture and oils that would otherwise make skin slip. The grooves act like miniature drainage paths, breaking up wet patches so friction stays reliable when you handle a mug, turn a page, or twist a jar lid. The ridges also concentrate pressure at their peaks, which can make it easier to detect fine textures as your finger glides over fabric or wood grain. And because each pattern is unique, fingerprints became one of humanity's most practical identity tools, from inked cards to modern sensors. Yet the deeper wonder is that this design sits at the intersection of touch, grip, and individuality, built into the skin you use every day without thinking. Your nails grow from hidden matrices, and they record health changes. A nail is not a dead plate that simply sits there. It is the visible outcome of a living growth zone tucked under the cuticle, called the nail matrix. Cells produced in that hidden factory harden into keratin and slide forward, creating the smooth surface you trim. Because nails grow slowly, they can preserve a timeline of what was happening in your body weeks earlier. Temporary illness, nutritional gaps, or severe stress can sometimes leave subtle ridges or lines, like faint rings in a tree. Color shifts can hint at injury, circulation changes, or infection. Even the half-moon shape near the base, the lunula, reflects how the nail is formed beneath the skin. Nail biting and picking matter too, because they disturb the matrix and the seal that protects it. A small crack can become a pathway for microbes. In a quiet way, your nails are both tools and records, combining protection for fingertips with a slow-moving diary of growth. Your hair follicles cycle through growth and rest, not all at once. Hair does not grow like grass, evenly and continuously across the scalp. Each follicle runs its own schedule, moving through a growth phase, a transition phase, and a resting phase before the hair sheds and the cycle begins again. This staggered timing is why you do not lose all your hair at once, and why a brush can collect a few strands without alarm. The follicle is a tiny organ with its own stem cells, pigment cells, and immune interactions, building a fiber that can last years. Hormones can shift the cycle, which is why pregnancy, thyroid changes, or aging can alter thickness and shedding patterns. Stress can also push more follicles into rest, leading to noticeable shedding months later, long after the stressful event has passed. Even the texture of hair, curly or straight, is shaped by the follicle's geometry. Every strand is the result of a timed, living process, repeated thousands of times across your scalp. Your body's smell is shaped by skin bacteria, not sweat alone. Two people can eat the same meal, walk the same street, and still carry noticeably different personal scents. That individuality comes from chemistry on the skin's surface. Your glands release a mix of molecules, and your skin's microbial community transforms some of those molecules into new compounds that the nose can detect. Genetics influences this too, including how certain glands function and which scent molecules are produced more readily. Diet, stress, medications, and the fabrics you wear can all shift the chemical starting material, which means scent can change from week to week. Hygiene products add another layer, because deodorants and soaps do not simply remove smell, they reshape the ecosystem that creates it. Even your immune system plays a subtle role, since different immune signatures can influence which microbes thrive on your skin. Your scent is not one simple thing. It is a living blend of biology and environment, a quiet signature that follows you through the world. Your embryos once had a tail, before development reshaped the spine. Early in development, the human body is built in a way that echoes deep evolutionary history. For a short time, the embryo forms a tail-like extension, with several more vertebrae than you will keep. As growth continues, this structure is gradually remodeled. Cells are reabsorbed, tissues reorganize, and the remaining bones become the coccyx, the tailbone you sit on. That small remnant still serves as an anchor point for muscles and ligaments of the pelvic floor, supporting posture and internal organs. In very rare cases, a baby can be born with a small tail-like protrusion, usually involving soft tissue rather than a true bony tail. It is an unusual window into how powerful and flexible development can be. The larger point is this: your body is shaped by a set of instructions that build, refine, and sometimes delete temporary structures as they become unnecessary. Before you ever took a breath, your form was already being edited into its final layout. Your body starts as a tiny disk of cells that folds into layers. At the beginning, the human body is not shaped like a person at all. It starts as a small, flat disk of cells. Then, through coordinated movements, that disk begins to fold, thicken, and organize into layered sheets. Those layers become the foundations of organs and tissues. One layer gives rise to the skin and nervous system. Another forms muscles, bones, and much of the circulatory system. Another becomes the lining of the gut and lungs, and many associated organs. The choreography is precise. Cells migrate, stick, separate, and signal to each other, deciding where the head will be, where the spine will form, and how the body will establish left and right. Tiny errors in timing can have big consequences, which is why development includes many checkpoints and self-correcting behaviors. What feels like a seamless creation is actually a sequence of folds, turns, and commitments, like origami guided by chemistry. From a disc to a body, form emerges through motion. A placenta is a temporary organ that builds a life support system. For months, the placenta acts as a living interface between parent and developing baby. It anchors into the uterus and grows an intricate network of blood vessels that bring nutrients and oxygen close to the baby's circulation, without directly mixing the two blood supplies in the usual way. It also removes waste, like a combined lung, kidney, and digestive partner. Beyond transport, it is an endocrine powerhouse, releasing hormones that support pregnancy, adjust metabolism, and help prepare the body for birth and lactation. The placenta also plays a protective role, filtering some threats, though not all, and passing along antibodies that help provide early immune protection after birth. It is a remarkable example of biological engineering built on a deadline. After delivery, it is no longer needed, and the body releases it, completing its short, intense career. Few organs are so vital, so complex, and so temporary. For a while, it is a whole support world, grown for one purpose, then gently set aside. Your immune system learns tolerance, so it does not attack your own tissues. From the start of life, your immune system faces a dangerous challenge. It must respond fiercely to real threats, yet it must also recognize your own cells as home. That balance is built through training. As immune cells develop, many that react strongly to the body's own molecules are eliminated or reprogrammed. Others are guided into becoming regulatory cells, whose job is to calm unnecessary reactions and prevent friendly fire. This tolerance is not only about the body's own tissues. It also extends to harmless foods and many of the microbes that live with you, especially in the gut. When tolerance fails, autoimmune disease can emerge, with the immune system targeting joints, nerves, skin, or organs. Allergies reflect a different misfire, where harmless substances are treated as threats. The fact that this usually does not happen is the wonder. Your immune system is not just a weapon. It is also a diplomat, learning restraint, recognizing belonging, and maintaining peace within a body made of many changing parts. Your body can produce endorphins, natural chemicals that soften pain. Endorphins are part of the body's internal pharmacy. They are molecules that combine to opioid receptors and reduce the perception of pain, while also influencing mood and stress responses. They can be released during intense exercise, which is one reason some people describe a runner's high, a calm uplift after effort. They can also surge during laughter, connection, music, or moments of relief, helping the body recover from tension. In emergencies, this chemistry can allow you to keep moving even when injured, buying time to reach safety. Endorphins do not erase pain like turning off a switch. They adjust the volume, changing how the brain interprets signals from the body. They also interact with other systems, including adrenaline and cortisol, shaping the overall experience of challenge and recovery. This ability shows that pain is not only a raw signal from tissue. It is also a state the brain can modulate, using built-in chemistry to protect function and preserve hope. Your life is a moving mosaic of cells, and yet you stay you. At any moment, you feel like one continuous person. But your body is a society of cells with different lifespans and replacement rates. Some cells are renewed often, while others can remain for years, holding long memories in their structure and connections. As old cells retire, new ones take their places, guided by DNA instructions and local signals that keep tissues organized. Even so, identity persists. Part of that continuity comes from your nervous system, which maintains patterns of connection and memory. Part comes from the steady rhythm of physiology, breath, heartbeat, and hormones, keeping your internal world stable enough for the mind to recognize itself. Your immune system also helps preserve the boundary of self, distinguishing your tissues from outsiders. The strange beauty is that you are both change and continuity. You are replaced in pieces, repaired in layers, and remodeled across years, yet your sense of being remains. You are not a statue. You are a process that holds a shape. As we come to the end of our gentle journey through the human body, you can let the wonder settle softly, like a blanket finding its place. We wandered through a living world that is always working, even in stillness. A brain that rewires and predicts, building a steady sense of reality from whispers of light and sound. A heart that keeps time without pause, sending life through vessels that reach every part of your body. Lungs trading breath with the world, skin standing guard at the boundary, and an immune system learning, remembering, and choosing restraint as carefully as it chooses defense. We listen to the quiet intelligence of hormones and rhythms, to muscles and tendons that store springy power, to bones that hold both strength and minerals, to senses that stitch together touch, taste, balance, and sight. And now, you do not need to hold any of it tightly. Let it drift through you like calm water, leaving behind only a warm sense of appreciation for what carries you through every ordinary day. If you enjoyed this sleepy exploration, you might like to stay with us for another gentle video. If you are still awake, you can simply let the next one begin and keep floating from one quiet curiosity to the next. And if this episode brought you a little peace, you can support the channel by liking, subscribing, or leaving a thought below so more tired minds can find their way here. For now, allow your shoulders to loosen. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breathing slow, unhurried, and easy. Your body already knows how to rest. You only have to allow it. Sleep well, and good night.